And we are live. Welcome, Anthony Amore, a.k.a. How many times have you gotten Tony Love?
More than I can count.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
It's a good nickname, though. If you're
If
gonna
you're
have
in porn.
if you're have an alter ego.
Yeah, I always say my name would be really good for if I was a porn director or something like that.
Or a
it's a heck of a
nickname
name.
for a certain other thing. Anthony, thanks for coming on. I appreciate
No,
it.
thanks for having me.
You and I have actually, this is the first time we're meeting in person, but we've been friendly online for a long time.
True.
Fellow alumnus slash fraternal brothers in the GOP candidate loss community.
Yeah.
So just so people who might not know, who are new to this, to the Lincoln Reviews audience, you ran for what and when?
In 2018, I was the Republican nominee for Secretary of State. So I ran unopposed in the primary and ran against Bill Galvin, the monolith, in the general election. Was handily defeated.
Yeah, God, he's been there forever.
He has 28 years, 29 now, and he has it down. He knows, exactly what to do when it's campaign time. He has the machine out there. We did a little commercial for the a web-based commercial showing how many times at each polling places his name is displayed between the campaign materials, his pictures, his signs. Everything says Secretary of State William F. Galvin, and you wonder how you're going to beat this guy. I mean, he basically has campaign materials up at the polling place.
Yeah, and Secretary of State isn't exactly the sexiest position in the world.
No, that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, it's it takes not to get too deep into the mass politics, but we'll give the 10-second rundown of what Secretary of State does here in Massachusetts, because obviously nationally they do some important stuff.
Yeah,
but here it's in charge of elections.
Elections, yeah. Number one is elections. A lot of corporations regulating lobbyists, the financial industry, but the primary thing is elections. And my platform was based on election security because I saw that we have sort of an antiquated system in the Commonwealth in terms of security and in terms of the way boards of election and town clerks around the state communicate with each other and with the state. So some vulnerability in our communication systems because it's so old.
Yeah,
it hadn't been changed in decades. So that was the platform I ran on. I thought it was an important one. And, when I look back at it and people ask me if I regret running because, you lost by a lot. No, my God. Barry Goldwater talked about losing constructively. And that's what I felt I did. You got a chance to have the bully pulpit and go out and force the incumbent to address issues like election security and these sorts of things. So, he was smart and he's crafty, and he took steps to improve security. So you did accomplish something.
Yeah. No, I don't regret running at all.
No.
I'd like to run again one day too, for sure. And I think I'd do it much better.
What was the worst part of it?
The paperwork.
Oh yeah.
I just the tough part was just like gathering signatures. I didn't know anything about running a campaign when I ran.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to gather 2,000 signatures, and I didn't know where to begin or what the best places were. And then you have this deadline and there's crunch time and you're like, oh my goodness, I got to get it done. And so if you're a campaign pro, it's like, yeah, we'll knock those out. No problem. But if you've never done it before, you're thinking to yourself, oh God, if I don't get on the ballot, then this is a complete embarrassment. So once I was on the ballot, that was good. And then the quarterly filings and doing all that paperwork, and it's relatively straightforward, but it's just a lot. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that you have to follow and make sure everybody on your team is abiding by them. And
were you working
that kind of stuff.
Were you working full time?
I was working full time while I was doing it. Yeah, I couldn't take away. I have family to support. So yeah, that was the biggest pain. The rest of it I actually love. I love going out and meeting people, shaking hands, listening to them, talking with folks, the debates, the policy discussions, all that stuff. That was the enjoyable part.
Me too.
Just honestly, the paperwork and the bullshit was really what I didn't like. But enough about that for right now. I've invited you because since your loss, you have been very active on Twitter, and we've been seeing eye to eye on a fair amount of stuff, liking similar tweets and commenting in a simpatico way about all the issues from our president to our governor to our local media.
True.
So you've been doing the round of shows like I did a few years ago. But welcome to the ultimate success in media and being on the Lincoln Review podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
All right. So what shows have you been on? What did you get invited on so far?
Well, I was doing, it's odd because of my day job working at the Gardner Museum, looking for the stolen paintings. I get on a lot of shows because of that. And then it's this natural morph, like, well, you're into politics too. You're a Republican and you're not going to come on and scream. So a lot of the shows have had me on in a weird kind of morphed into doing political shows.
Well, they stopped having me on when I wouldn't scream about Trump. Like there's well, too, we can't really talk about it off air, but how we've been approached, and it's like there's sort of like the waning Trumpism a little bit on camera that people are looking for. So they're looking for the people who aren't, and we can get into Trump in a second, but there is an audience for reasonable people and center right or even conservative Republicans in mass polymedia. The problem is liberals, when they have them on, always lose the argument. Always.
Right.
And so they tend to have Joe Malone on, or caricatures of Trump supporters who don't know policy, who don't know what they're talking about, so that they can look good. Jim Browdy does it. Sue used to do it. It's kind of where it's been. So I think, like I've talked about on other episodes, this conversation right here, where we've gone 7 minutes, the segment's already done when you're on TV. Right. So right now, this is already a more politically nutritious conversation for people who are interested. And believe me, the audience isn't too broad for this stuff, but the audience that does listen, I think, appreciates it. So sure. It's a better place to be. This is the future of talking about politics and finding out about what's going on in your town, city, state, world, country, all that good stuff. We got into it a little bit on Friday. When I invited you on, I said, all right, here's our first topic, because we got into it with Sue O'Connell, who was, I'm going to pull this up. Oh, Sue. I don't mean to pick on Sue. I love Sue. We both love Sue. Right. Sue's wonderful. Actually, do you listen to Kirk Minihane? Not Kirk Minihane. I'm sorry. I can't believe I mispronounced his name. Kirk Minihane.
I don't.
His podcast. Okay, so he was on EEI. That was the sports station.
I know he has the podcast now, right?
Right. So Barstool, he's on the podcast there, but his old co-host, Jerry Callahan, is, I guess, looking to start one up. And it's been talked about that he and Sue should do a show. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, me too.
I really do. And I think from what I've heard, she's open to it. And I think that would be fantastic.
I think Sue would be great on a podcast.
Yeah, she is great. The podcasts I've heard her on, she's been terrific. But where she sort of isn't as good is when she goes back into the liberal bubble and thinks that she isn't willing to be exposed or to new different ideas that make sense. She'd rather go right at us from her talking points. So I think her doing a show with Jerry would be good. At least some episodes. Try it out. All right, so she was really upset on Friday, or was it Thursday? I'm not sure I have the stomach to deal with Trump supporters who, all caps, are just now shocked and angry. Really, people. Well, she was talking about the Kurds and us, and I'll use the word abandoning them to the Turkish forces over in Syria because Donald Trump decided to pull it out. First of all, let's get into that a little bit, and we'll try to bring it back to what Sue had, because she couldn't believe that people might actually have nuanced policy thoughts about Donald Trump and what he does. And it's not as complicated as, well, if you hate Trump, then you must vote Democrat. You
Right.
must become a liberal. It's like,
Right.
what? No, those aren't my only options. I think, and that's basically, I'm simplifying what took place, but for Sue's tweet, but I think that's what she's getting at. It's like, if you don't fall in line with us, or if you hate Trump, well, you've got to be a liberal. No.
Right.
No.
And we get that from both sides, though, because I saw a tweet today from someone I typically respect, but it said that, essentially, if you don't support Trump, then you're a rhino, which is weird. It's
That's
become,
insane. No.
And I know you've talked about Trump derangement syndrome a lot, and there's no question about it. It's out there, but it's on both sides because, one side says he can do nothing right. The other side says he can absolutely do nothing wrong. And I put something on my Facebook page this week about, I thought this move with the Kurds was absolute betrayal of these people who've been the tip of the spear in the fight against ISIS, being left, in my view, to be slaughtered. And I think we're going to see that. And the vitriol, excuse me, I'm sorry, the vitriol from Trump supporters over that statement, as if you can never question anything the president does, is a different form of Trump derangement syndrome in my mind. It's a weird thing where you can't really teeter in the center. You have to be one way or the other.
Yeah, they're always Trump. No
Always
matter
Trump,
what he
right.
does, he's never wrong. And you got to back him no matter what.
He said it. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue or Madison Ave, whatever he said, and I wouldn't lose any supporters. He's right. He said it himself. It's true.
100%.
Yeah.
And that says a lot. It says a lot about the people, but I've said this online. We've talked about it. This has been a clarifying presidency.
Sure.
In a lot of respects, across the board, left, right, and center. I have seen that no matter what, the left, the way they've reacted to Donald Trump is far, far worse than Donald Trump. I've seen people who were moderate or claimed to be moderate Republicans. We won't mention anybody specifically here, but those of you who are familiar with the podcast know what we're talking about. I've seen that lose their minds and say, well, if you hate Trump, then if you don't like Trump, or I hate Trump, ergo Trump is the worst thing in the world and nothing is worse than him.
Right.
No.
Right.
No. The entire Democratic field right now is worse than Trump.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth Warren is going to do things to, is going to enact certain legislation that will absolutely bankrupt the country. Not that we don't have serious financial problems already, but it's this insanity. And then I got to deal with people. Well, what about Hillary Clinton? And it's like 3 years later. I'm like, what about Hillary Clinton? She's not the president anymore. Right. He still has a job to do. And it reminds me of the the Democrats, who when the economy stunk under Barack Obama for the first 2, 3, 4 years, where I was like, oh, well, it's Bush's fault. Like, shut up. Just shut up, the two of you.
Right.
There's no room for an actual intelligent conversation about the aspects of it, because I wish Sue the best of luck if she goes on with Jerry. I think it'll be good. The question will become is if she's enabling the right or enabling conservatives by simply being on, by interacting with him, by having the discussion. They may get upset with it. I don't think there won't be a center person, right person, conservative person that will say Sue shouldn't be on with Jerry. The only criticism she will get from that, and I'll put money on it, it'll be from the left.
Yeah.
She will get that.
Well, it's the same thing with Ellen sitting next to
exactly. That's
W.
that's a good point. I mean, I couldn't. I actually pulled it up because it was so awful, and I'm going to say this this is the first time I kind of wanted to save it for a podcast. Renee Graham from the Boston Globe is a bigot. Is a bigot, and it's disgusting. She is part of the problem, not part of the solution. The Boston Globe has given her a complete, unfettered platform to spew hatred and bile. And this kind of crap, where she's saying, no, it doesn't matter what, what's the title of it? Ellen DeGeneres is killing us with her kindness. Turn the volume down if you got the kids in the car. Fuck you. God damn it.
It's so divisive. It's amazing.
Damn it. I mean, first of all, there's plenty of pictures with Michelle Obama and George W. Bush. The insane rhetoric of, war criminal and all this horseshit. It's poisoning it. And that is all baked into what got us to this point. It's baked into what got us Donald Trump.
I'm glad you're saying this, because it's a complete misconception to believe that this is a new thing under Trump. This sort of attacks the idea that Trump is a fascist, that he's Hitler, that people who support him are trash and they're Hitler too. That's almost normalized now to call people Hitler, which is incredible. They were doing it when Bush was president. When W was president, there are plenty of posters with him with the small mustache like Hitler, and he was a Nazi and a fascist, and he didn't support, he was an oppressor. He wanted to cancel out lives of LGBTQ plus people. At the same time that he was against marriage equality, so were Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. And I'm sure she won't admit it now. She said she can't remember, but I'd love to have seen Elizabeth Warren on record.
Warren.
I believe I firmly believe, I might have Warren derangement syndrome. I think she is the worst person in politics. And I whenever I say this, automatically I'm being sexist. Which is ironic.
Oh yeah, if you go on the cable shows and the local TV talk shows, you're sexist.
Or on Twitter.
Well, first, yeah, but finish your point. Yep.
Well, I think it's ironic, because if I could pick, this won't be popular, but if I could pick any candidate to run for president from our side, I'm a huge Condoleezza Rice person. I think she would be the perfect candidate when you think about Eastern Europe and Russia, and her ability to talk reasonably and her sheer intellect. And what it would say for our party to have her as our candidate, I just think she would be a home run. And if I say that, I'm a rhino.
It's Rice Haley.
That would be amazing.
2024, maybe if something happens, who knows? 2020, But they'd win in a landslide.
It'd be incredible.
The sexist trope that Joan Venaki was talking about this week against Warren. It's like, well, if you're criticizing her for this, it's a double standard. And what was Warren lying about this week? It was
the pregnancy.
Right. Okay, so all this evidence comes out that she was not, in fact, terminated because she was pregnant. She was actually offered another contract.
By her own words on 2 videos.
Oh,
she didn't. This isn't some supposition you and I are making.
Here we go. Let's play. All right. No, keep going. Keep talking.
She said in 2 separate videos, it's very basic. She was teaching, I think it was, had to do with language, but she was on an emergency certificate, which means sort of like a waiver. You need to get more credits. Her own words were she went to get those credits at graduate courses in the field and decided, quote, this isn't going to work for me, and decided not to work in that job anymore. That turns into, I was shown the door because I was visibly pregnant, which has morphed into the left saying, if you don't accept what she's saying, you're a sexist because this has happened to other women. And I think it was you that tweeted something about, just because this has happened to other women doesn't mean it happened to her. It's just this bizarre logic
that was the point of what I think Joan Venaki's
it's
article.
Essentially, it did happen to other women, which I fully believe.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it happened to her.
Well, yeah, and what particularly irks me is that all of her lies tend to lean towards the idea of victimhood.
Without a doubt.
It's she was her Native American ancestry lie tends towards victimhood.
She was marginalized class.
Right. She is always part of the victim class, which is a very potent and appealing way to approach the electorate, because there's a lot of people out there that think they're victims, that think they're owed things that they're not owed, like healthcare.
They enjoy it.
Yeah.
Only that philosophy could lead to a woman who looks like Elizabeth Warren to allow Harvard University to call her the first woman of color on the Harvard Law faculty. And I sit here and I think how insulting that is to actual women of color. But amazingly, it turns into, well, you're being a sexist or you're being racist.
I have no idea what this clip is. I'm going to pull this up because I'm doing this on the fly. Here, throw those headphones on.
Sure.
And we'll see what...
it should be her interview from 2007.
This is just, it says, Warren can't stop lying, the DC shorts. I'm sure this is some right-wing website, but we'll see what they have to say. Oh, there's an ad. All right, we're gonna skip ad. Skip it. All right, here we go.
Of lie.
My first teaching position was as a special needs teacher. By the end of the first school year, I was quite visibly pregnant, and the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. Teaching special needs kids is a calling, but I finished the first year visibly pregnant, and back in those days, it meant you didn't get invited back. That's how it was.
Now a newly surfaced...
Well, that's a lie right there. It's just such horseshit. God, sorry.
The video contradicts her campaign trail story about why she got fired from a teaching job.
It was in a public school system, but I worked with the children with disabilities. And I did that for a year. And then that summer, I actually didn't have the education courses, so I was on an emergency certificate, it was called. And I went back to graduate school and took a couple of courses in education and said, I don't think this is going to work out for me. And I was pregnant with my first baby. So I had a baby and stayed home for a couple of years.
The 2020 presidential hopeful is again facing backlash after the Washington Post.
So that's a good takeaway. You can take the headphones off. See, this is why I invested in all this fancy equipment, so we can play stuff like that and talk about it. But one thing that our friends who we interact with in Massachusetts and Boston media just don't get, especially folks at the Globe and on TV, they really don't understand how much they protected her in 2012. This type of activity was completely going on from that living room video of you didn't pay for it or that's our roads or whatever it was back in the day, where people saw that video and it got scrubbed and it didn't get covered by the Globe and major media outlets because they knew how it would make her look. I'm going to say something that, Boston, especially Scott Lehigh, Joan Vanacki, Shirley Leung at the Globe, she's not a good candidate. She's a good Democratic primary candidate because she tells you what you want to hear, and you've treated her with kid gloves for 7 years. And it's all going to blow up in your face. Because when you said on the air, on what, Brian Shackman's show, what, Inside Politics on NBCN? Primary sources. Right. When you said that she's unlikable, it's the absolute truth. She's unlikable because of crap like this. Now, well, what about Donald Trump and his lies? Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's there too.
Right.
Who's going to come off worse?
Right.
She can be a funny, kind of charming person on, for certain things, but it always lends itself towards the left. It's always there was a clip of her making a funny joke about, a gay marriage or something like that the other day. I'll find that in a second, pull it up. But on the whole, she has been treated with such kid gloves, coddled by the local media, and now she's going to make blunder after blunder, but she's not going to be Teflon, like that. And as of right now, I think she'll probably be the nominee. I'm guessing Biden, I think, may fade. When Bernie drops out, she'll get a big chunk of his support, and that's just the way the numbers will work. I don't know
if the Bernie people seem not to like her so much.
You know why?
I don't know why. Maybe because she's co-opting a lot of his platform to win those voters over. But the polls show that his supporters aren't crazy about her. which is interesting.
Yeah, I figured they'd line up pretty good, but yeah, that's an odd. Maybe
I
it's
would
just
too. I would
loyalty
think.
from the previous campaign.
Perhaps.
But they did her no disservice locally, and still don't.
Well, they never
when
will.
when like the fawning columns about how great she is and what
Well, they
her
ran that op-ed saying, please, please, please run for president back in 2016.
Yeah, she should have run then. She should have run then. She would have beat Bernie and beat Hillary.
Perhaps.
No,
I keep
yeah.
hoping Hillary jumps in now to beat her. I think she's the worst possible scenario.
I don't know if the Democratic base.
No, it wouldn't happen.
They
But
would.
She
Yeah.
is the worst case scenario because she's willing to say anything and give away anything. And I was just going to say do it for power, but once I said that on Browdy's show, and Jesse Mermel, who I also like, said, "You're saying that because she's a woman." I'm saying, "No, I'm saying it because she's a candidate." She's made it clear that she'll say anything and promise to give away anything for votes.
Right. Yeah. The hiding behind the sexism of her criticism is just it's
Stifling.
shh. Be quiet.
Yep.
You know, cut it out. Like
It works.
Yeah.
It makes me think. It makes me second guess myself, even when I'm sitting here speaking to you. I'm
No,
second guessing
you
myself.
shouldn't. I mean,
Right.
you know, the thing that's great about something like this, as opposed to Browdy's show, is Browdy will cut you off right after Jesse says that and be like, before you go, no, it's not. Stop it.
right.
You know, Jesse and I did a lot of work together covering 2016. So
Super nice person.
she is very smart. She'll win the Mass Fourth primary, and
No
she'll
doubt.
cruise to
she's
election.
a congressperson.
Yeah.
She's going.
Yeah. I would be surprised if anybody really gave her a serious primary challenge because all the stars align with that, and she's got Ayanna Pressley as her at her back.
True.
So
I think it's over. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when Goldberg dropped out. It's like she knew.
Oh, when did that happen? This week?
Earlier this week, late last week. Yep. She wasn't going to run, even though she filed the papers.
Interesting.
She saw the
all right,
writing
then there's
on the
no.
wall.
Yeah, then there's nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah, okay. So all right. So yes, Elizabeth Warren's terrible for a whole host of reasons, but you know we can commiserate about it on here. It won't do a lot of good anywhere else. But I think that she could beat Trump. I don't see it being very likely. I think once her ideas get out in the mainstream, and she talks about all her plans, and she's got a plan for this and a plan for that, and the media says, "Oh, she's got a plan."
Most of those are new federal agencies.
Yeah, nobody ever asks, "Well, is it a good plan? Will that
Never a
work?"
good plan.
No, of
Is
course.
it constitutional?
Yeah,
No.
it doesn't matter. And she also sounds like. Did you ever listen to Howard Stern?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember who Underdog Woman was?
does.
She's Underdog Woman.
That's where I've heard that.
Yes.
I'm not joking. That's
No,
where
no,
I've heard
no.
that
She
voice
is.
before.
She's Underdog Woman.
She sounds like her.
Yeah, totally. And how we try to do the voice. Oh, well, Donald Trump is just so terrible, and I don't know. that
That's
kind
a
of.
great analogy. I'm sure there's some,
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's sexist. She's not.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't.
but you're right. She does. She's
Okay,
the same
100%. Like somebody out there better at video than me should do that mashup of.
I wonder if Underdog Lady was from Oklahoma because it's the same accent.
Maybe. I don't know. I thought it was like that Minnesota northwest type. Midwest.
Well, I don't want to
accent.
belabor the point on her, and you're right. We should, but the one thing that I think everybody should see, and I only saw because I saw it in one of those PragerU videos.
Yeah.
It was on Twitter at the beginning, and she is on some network television show. And I'm almost exact quoting here. She said, "If you have something broken in your life, it's because of billionaires and giant corporations."
Really?
And absolutely.
Oh man, you should have had that. I would have.
I'll
I
get
should
that
play
to you.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I can play it. Well, to see if I can look for it.
It
but
was, that's bone chilling to me. She has, there is a lot of people in America who believe, they take Bezos, for instance, what's he worth, 103 billion or something? I can't remember, something like that.
give or take. Yeah.
Yeah. And imagine saying give or take in terms of billions, right? Who think,
Give or take 100 million here or there,
no big deal.
depending on the day.
But there's people in the country who really believe that if Jeff Bezos lost all that, their life would be better. And that their life is worse because he has all that, which is just false. They think there's this pile of money and he's taken a bunch for himself and therefore you can't earn it. It's something you can't earn. People believe that it's the Bernie Sanders argument.
Yeah.
Nobody should have that much money. Well,
Right.
why?
Yeah. They
Why?
just
Well, how
say
does it
it.
affect me?
Well, I think this is what pisses me off the most about when we get into this stuff with everybody is that they never debate this. Elizabeth Warren, kudos to Jeff Deal for winning the primary and running against her, but he was not equipped to attack her economic arguments, which is what he should have been doing the whole time, attacking single payer, attacking her economic policies, her redistributionist policies, all of this stuff. Instead, it was all immigration. It was just a losing campaign. City councilor, right? So he comes on, and he's like, well, we need to raise the minimum wage for economic equality. The guy went to MIT. Okay, smart guy. Why? Well, if you raise the minimum wage, they'll get paid more. I'm like, okay, where's the money come from? Well, it would come from the employers. Okay, where do the employers get it from? And then it's like you could see the synapses in his brain starting to misfire. And I'm like, they have to go out and raise prices, and their customers will pay them. Or they have to cut costs and not hire people. One or the other. Or both. And when that takes place, what do you think happens to the wages that you've just raised for the people that you're forcing employers to pay them more? Employers and companies charge more for their products. Ergo, the person earning that wage has to pay a higher price for all the products. Do you see how this sort of isn't going to work?
Right.
They've never been challenged on it,
Especially on the math. You would think a guy who went to MIT would first be thinking about the math. And it's the same with corporate taxes.
Bernie's never challenged. Like it goes even when occasionally he's had the interaction with maybe Ted Cruz about all of his terrible ideas. It goes in one ear and out the other, and it goes, "Oh, corporations, millionaires, billionaires."
Yeah,
and
good imitation.
I try. But but especially Warren, and what scares me and why I say she can win or could win is that I don't think Donald Trump is equipped to have that debate with her and have that discussion. It would really rely on other people to kind of be surrogates for that discussion and get across how bad she is. And there's articles in the was an article in the was it the Wall Street Journal that like Wall Street money is either sitting out or backing Trump if she's nominated, which is of course
they're definitely against her,
of course. And the problem I see is that I think her academically or intellectually there's a lot of fraud going on there.
Without a doubt, she knows that at 2%, she keeps talking about 2 cents on the dollar for the richest people in America, and it's going to pay for. And the things that she lists that it's going to pay for, it's literally impossible. They never talk about the math, like the idea that when they talk about if every Fortune 500 CEO donated, every one of them donated their salaries to their workers, the average worker at those companies would get a 10-cent an hour increase. 10 cents an hour.
Whopping.
But when you sell that, like Elizabeth Warren does, a huge amount of demagoguery, you think, wow, they're multi-million dollars. I'd probably get a $10,000 a year raise. No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's pennies, and people don't seem to get that because they never talk about the math.
It's a problem, and I have concerns. I mean, with Trump's ability to, I think if the Democrats nominate Biden, I honestly think Biden will beat him. He's more well liked, has the name ID. Not as crazy and lefty as Warren and Sanders, right. Still bad, but he's just got a little bit of an edge with that blue collar worker who might be going, yeah, I remember Joe, and I'll vote for him.
Status quo.
Yeah, going back and things weren't as crazy.
Right.
I think Biden could and would. And there's a sliding scale of who can beat Trump.
Yep.
Bernie. Not gonna beat Trump. Warren things could happen, and it's a possibility. Biden can and would beat Trump, and the polling shows that.
Yep.
So, the funny thing is with Biden, is the impeachment talk.
Right.
And this is such a strange thing to me because it's like I look at this and I think to myself, all right, I'm seeing the world relatively clearly in what's going on. Donald Trump asked the president of the Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. He admitted to it. He asked Giuliani to do it, and work with Barr to do it. That's wrong in the ethical sense, I guess. Or if he shouldn't have, if he was going to, he shouldn't have asked Giuliani to do it, who was not part of the government, who is just his campaign and his personal lawyer. And it was the day after he got essentially cleared by Mueller for Russian collusion, and he goes out and he colludes with the Ukrainian president to dig up evidence about corruption on his chief political opponent. Now, his chief political opponent, it's looking more and more like there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that he's very corrupt. Mm-hmm. And I say to myself, oh my God, he actually, like, he wouldn't have investigated corruption of some random person who's involved in Ukraine. He only asked the president of the Ukraine because it was Biden. The problem is that Hunter Biden made $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian gas company, has no experience with natural gas, has no business experience. He also, you find out, went on a trip to China, and a few months after that, when he was managing a hedge fund, secured $1 billion from the Chinese for his hedge fund. And one thing I've heard from some of the journalists and politicos I follow on the right was what Biden did with the prosecutor back in 2015 about firing him.
Yep.
Now,
says it right out there.
Now he says it. Now this is the thing. This is I'll try to break it down. The divergence between far right and center right. Far right, Trump supporters, always Trump, say he fired the prosecutor that was investigating his son, and that's why he did it. And he was because he wasn't. He wanted him to throw him off the trail of Hunter. Then you find out some evidence. Now, this is the evidence that the Obama administration put out there, that they said they fired him because he wasn't prosecuting Hunter Biden's company, the company he worked for. He wasn't doing it. Mm-hmm. So there's two conflicting things. This prosecutor was either fired because he wasn't doing his job or because he was doing his job. And there is conflicting evidence to that. There's actually the testimony the prosecutor gave a little bit while after he was fired that says, no, he was going after Burisma, Hunter Biden's company. And then there's all the evidence that the Obama administration put out there that said, no, he wasn't doing a good job. He wasn't going after corruption strong enough, so we fired him. In the terms of political opinion, in my mind, it probably doesn't matter because nobody's really paying attention to it, but they know Hunter Biden got paid $50,000 a month, not because he's good at managing or relationships with natural gas company, because he's the vice president's
That's an easy thing to figure out.
It is not that hard, and I always hesitate to use Trump language when we talk about these things, but that's so damn swampy.
Oh, it is.
God,
it's not surprising at all.
Man,
Swampy,
$50,000 a month because your dad's the vice president and you've been a screw up your whole life, and you get that. And I'm like busting my ass to, sure. This is where I get sympathetic to the people who support Warren and Bernie, and they're like, we're obviously getting screwed. And where the Bezos thing, comes into play, where there's like that kernel of truth to them feeding the resentment politics.
Sure.
So I hesitate to say that, Donald Trump committed an impeachable act by approaching the president of Ukraine and asking him to investigate his chief political rival. But damn, his chief political rival was involved in some pretty shady stuff. So what do we do?
Sounds like a wash. To me, I think the average voter, I'm not saying I think it's a wash. I think the average voter looks at it as a wash.
Probably.
Trump shouldn't have done that. It was for politics. Biden's son should be making $50,000 a month. They're both dirty.
Right.
That's how it comes off to the average voter in my mind.
What do you think? But do you think you should be impeached, or you should go through the impeachment thing?
First, he's not going to get removed. There's no way the Senate's going to vote to remove him from office. No way. They need, what do they need, 60? They need 60 votes?
Yeah. Yeah, two-thirds.
Is it 2/3 or 60? I can't remember, but either way, they're not
let's
getting
look
it.
at wait, impeachment Senate. Let's see. Senate votes. All right, let's see here. Let me pull it up. Trump predicts senators will quash impeachment. Probably will. Impeachment in the United States. Let's go to Wikipedia, the source of truth. All right, this is keeping it too long. I don't know. Civil office rules, procedure. All right, for your audio listeners, just hit the 30-second fast forward button on this. Senate trial.
There we go.
What does it say? Oh, screw it. All right, well, go look it up yourselves. I don't have time to do it necessarily.
Either way, 60 or 67.
Yeah,
it's not
something
gonna
like
happen.
that, right?
Just not going to happen. So he's not going to get removed. Putting people through this, I think the Democrats are probably wondering right now, how does it play out? I mean, putting him through this, if it's not going to remove him from office. Do you remember after Clinton was impeached?
Yeah.
There was a groundswell of support for him.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It just emboldens people. And we started this conversation talking about people don't change their minds. I mean, people harden their opinion when they're attacked.
I think it'll change, and only it will change when or if Trump's poll numbers crater, and he's losing against Warren across the board. Like if they can't, you know what I mean? If he's not politically viable anymore, senators will jump ship. Then they'll be like, all right, time to get somebody
they'll
else.
follow
Like that's
them.
when
Yeah.
it'll happen.
Yeah.
But there's no indication that that'll happen anytime soon. So as of right now, I don't see. On a scale of 1 to 10. All right, so let's do the rank punditry. Scale of 1 to 10, likelihood that the House moves forward with articles of impeachment, sending it to a trial, to the Senate. So or 0 to 100%. What do you think?
I'd say it's just over 50% that they will.
Okay. Yeah. They're in a mode right now. It's got to be, I'd say 60%. Yep. Maybe even 65 that it's going to happen. And the Senate,
0%.
I'm going to put it at 20.
Just because you're thinking about the poll numbers.
I think the poll numbers, and I think things could happen where they're just like, all right, enough. So the problem I think we find ourselves in as Republicans is that the right thing to do would be, he talked to the president of the Ukraine and he wanted them to investigate his chief political rival. That's bad, and he shouldn't do that, and sets a really bad precedent. And that's impeachable. And if a Democratic president did that, we'd want to impeach them. That's the right thing to do.
Well, it sets a precedent in that we know he did that.
Yeah.
Hey, would you be shocked if I told you any other president on either side has done that before?
No, I would not be
I'd
shocked.
almost be shocked if they didn't.
Right.
And I'm not exonerating him when I say that. I'm just saying I'd be shocked if presidents haven't used their power of persuasion with other government leaders to attack their political opponents.
Well, and the thing is, after we're left with the idea that, okay, he did that, the right thing to do would be impeach him, but then what am I left with? President Warren? No, sorry, then I'm not doing the right thing. I'm not doing the right thing, because doing the right thing will lead to lots of worse things in the future. These aren't theoretical arguments that happen in a vacuum. Everything is measured by what happens on the other side of the spectrum. Sure. So you can't just do it and think that it's not going to have some effect. But I'll put it at 20% that the Senate convicts, and he's probably going to get impeached by the House, probably be embolden him, and the nutbags will get their 15 minutes on MSNBC.
I think it's fair, 20%. I mean, I said 0 because I feel confident it won't happen, but nothing's ever 100% in life. So
would you vote for? I'll tell you, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. But if he makes it to the general in 2020, I'm 100% voting for him.
I I would probably blanket again just because
Yeah.
he can't win in Massachusetts anyway. He's nowhere as unpopular as he is here. There's no way he's going to he's going to come close to our senator, as bad as that is. In Massachusetts, if I thought it was going to be close, I would. I cannot tolerate her.
I
as
think
a
in
president.
Massachusetts he gets at least 100,000 more votes than he did in 2016.
You think so?
Absolutely, I'd put money on that.
I could believe he would do better. I think
Yeah.
people might be a little more, but I just feel there's going to be such a strong anti-Trump turnout in this state.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, he is loathed in Massachusetts, like
Right.
nowhere else.
Yeah. Well, maybe New York. He might be.
Well, his approvals here are lower than anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're on the ballot next year, good luck as
My
a
God,
as a
why would you
Republican.
be?
Well, if you're running for re-election in the state
I feel
legislature,
bad. I
yeah.
feel badly for him.
But
I
you're
think-
probably in a decent district anyway. So.
Well, you know, I spoke to Jim Lyons this week, and he made some good points about a lot of there are a lot of strong Trump districts in Massachusetts. Is the way it cuts out, and I think he was. Don't quote me on the numbers, but I think he was talking about 9 districts where Republicans could take those seats because Trump did so well in 2016.
Yeah.
So if you can get candidates in the right spots,
Yeah.
maybe
Might do
we
all
could
right.
break even.
I think and I think that would be the case.
If we
but,
break even,
yeah.
it's a
If you're
win.
at a higher level, though, it's probably a lost cause to run for that just in this year. But I could blanket, but like I said before, the left and the Democrats have gone so insanely off the deep end that if my only options are Trump and Elizabeth Warren, it's an easy decision for me.
She
it's
is that bad.
It's an easy decision for me to go. Of course, I'm going to vote for this guy. And how could you vote for this terrible, evil person? I'm like, if you haven't paid attention to what Elizabeth Warren's been doing, or I do respect the argument a little bit when you realize how corrupt Hillary Clinton really was. Hillary Clinton actually did what they want to impeach Donald Trump for. What they tried to get him for in 2016, what he actually did the minute after he got cleared this summer with the Ukrainians. But she hired a firm to get dirt from the Russians on Donald Trump.
No question.
So right there, like.
And the uranium deal.
Yeah,
was-
and all this kind of nonsense that you find out about how corrupt these people are.
Why did the money for the Clinton Foundation dry up? Why isn't Russia giving them money anymore?
Yeah, right.
Why?
Well, she didn't win.
Right.
There you go.
What did they think they were getting before? Was it just honest money?
Yeah.
You know, it's just so fraudulent. It's unbelievable. But I think just the impact of Elizabeth Warren on the courts, too, would be nightmarish, not just the economy.
Yeah. So for me, I have no problem. Hell, I'll write him a check in 2020.
Wow.
I'll if it's Warren, I'll fly down to Florida. I'll go out to Ohio if they need to knock on doors because she cannot be allowed.
Cannot
And
be allowed. What if it's Biden? What would you do?
I wouldn't fly to Ohio, because I wouldn't fight as hard because I think Trump, there's a reasonably good chance he'd lose, and in the blue collar states, in those Rust Belt states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, even you go up into Wisconsin, that area, the Democrats are going to focus there. They're going to do what Hillary Clinton didn't do, and they're going to they'll probably win those swing states. And I think it'll be a lot tougher for him.
Yeah, he'll masquerade as a lunch pail Joe.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
never worked a day in his life, but he'll masquerade as lunch pail Joe.
Right, and he's pretty good with that. Even though his teeth are falling out of his mouth, he's got the horrible dentures, and he's forgetting. He's forgetting. I mean, the senility's really taking hold of it, and it's so obvious. And in this age where it's not 1987, where they can hide the clips.
Right.
It's like
everything's
out there. So
What do you think about Ed says things often. Ed Lyons says about how you shouldn't be president if you're over 70. I don't agree with that at all. But I think it depends on the person. You have to look at each person. And
I had Ed on this podcast for a long time. We were co-hosts because I didn't agree with him on a whole hell of a lot of the policy things that we did, and we could sit down and talk about it reasonably. That changed, but when having him, that's one thing I do agree with him. I mean, you have to be a pretty dynamic 70-plus-year-old person.
Yeah, and there are people who are dynamic. But Joe Biden, for 8 years from now,
he'll be 8 years from now. He'll be 87. I mean, that's really old. They just this is your Sunday morning talk show if you're watching us live on Twitter or YouTube, but they had the graphic up. He's what, 78?
Is he?
And so he'll be 86, 87 years old if he serves a full
late 80s.
Yeah, late 80s. Reagan was elected at 69. At the end of his second term, he was younger than Biden and Bernie are right now. So that says something. Warren is 2 or 3 years older than Reagan was when he got elected.
Wow.
So, and they used to trash him for old age. Now it's like this whole thing. I mean, but Trump's in his 70s too.
What is Sanders now?
79, I think.
There's a 79-year-old guy just had a heart attack, and do you see major media saying that he should drop out? And I remember how much of a deal they made out of Cheney's heart conditions.
Yeah.
This guy just had a heart attack.
Yeah, good for him.
He's 79 years old.
I mean, he is a lovable little communist. I got to say, his ideas are terrible.
Horrible. Yeah.
Horrible. Will inflict a lot of pain across the country. They don't stand up to an ounce of scrutiny.
They're un-American.
They're
un-American.
They're communists. They're un-American. They're unconstitutional. But when you see an interview with him, you're like, this lovable little old fool. He's not as dislikable as
Don't say it.
Well, Clinton. I'll go back to Clinton. Yeah, not Warren. No, Warren has her charming moments, but
Yeah,
she's
but here's
still.
the
But there's
difference.
also a lot of just ingrained nagging.
She plays the part, like you mentioned a little earlier in the podcast about how she mentioned that she made that little joke that got laughs about marriage equality in the last debate. But she started it off, of course, saying that I will assume that comment would have come from a man, as if
Right.
no women are against marriage equality. Like, she always has to point to a villain.
Yeah.
But
Good point.
where she's
yeah.
different from Sanders is that and again, this one is considered sexist too. Amazing. She's inauthentic. And I don't believe her when she says these things. Sanders, I think, is just a crackpot. I think he's a true believer in these nutty philosophies. I think Elizabeth Warren, who used to proudly bear the title Dr. Phil's financial guru. And if you look at the About the Author on her books on Amazon.
Yeah,
from
she wrote several books. She was in favor of charter schools.
Absolutely.
She had, you're right. I
Yeah.
do think there is, if you peel away at the layers, kind of like the Clintons were, as corrupt as they were, they weren't uber left because they would go, no, these people are crazy. We can't do all of that stuff. We can't confiscate what are you, out of your mind?
Right.
Like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
She pretends to believe that. For when she was still running for Senate and not running for president, was asked, do you support single payer health care? And she's like, well, I don't know, and this and that. And it's like, now she's fully supporting single payer health care. The thing is, do I believe her? Well, this is the thing. I actually kind of believe her now. I think she drank the Kool-Aid and is fully on board with it. So
She was
I don't.
posturing then, maybe. But, just the idea that this whole last Senate campaign, this sham of a campaign where she pretended that she wasn't going to run for president or she wasn't sure. She didn't even wait to get sworn in for her second term before she announced her presidential exploratory committee, which none of those are exploratory. It just was so disingenuous. I wish someone would say, why did you run for re-election to Senate? You have no desire to be a senator. You want to be president. Why did you do this? And it's just security blanket.
Yeah,
It's a job.
It's a
in case she
backup
loses.
plan, right? Yeah, and doing nothing in the Senate all the while.
All the while, she's not a senator now. It's just incredible to me.
I wasn't planning on bashing Elizabeth
I'm
Warren
sorry.
this much. No,
I told you
you
it's
don't
my
have to apologize to me. This is
Warren
the only place
derangement.
This is the only place you're going to get it. No, it's not Warren derangement. I think it's Warren clarity.
Yeah. It is
The people at the Boston Globe have to pay service to her. As does Sue, as does NBC and the rest, and Jim Browdy on GBH and all that stuff. Like they don't actually, they don't want journalism. They don't want, truth to come out. They're members of the Democratic Party. And it's, what, I want to say it's fine. It's probably not really that fine, but just be honest about it. Don't pretend that you're coming at this from some approach of moral superiority and you're an ethical journalist and an arbiter of the truth. You're not. You're a partisan player.
Without a doubt.
I'm a partisan player. But
I am too,
but at least we'll have a good conversation about what's going on, about a policy, about a plan, figure it out, and maybe people out there will be more informed about it. The thing is, I'm confident when I debate a policy that I'm right, and I have logic and facts and lots of other evidence to support my side of it. Otherwise, I don't get into the argument.
Right. They
don't. Which is why they'll call you sexist, they'll call you racist, they'll call you homophobic, they'll call you whatever it is, just because we're going to win. Here's the thing. This is what I want to say. We're bumping up on an hour here.
Wow. It's fast.
It goes by fast, doesn't it? We're going to win. And one thing I do love about Donald Trump is that he drives them nuts. To quote Comfortably Smug, he just owns the libs left and right. And you can't necessarily run a competent administration like that. And I'll criticize him, and I have, and I'll continue to. And you want to at me or come at me for my criticism, by all means. But I'm not going to back down, and you're going to have a tough time of it. But what I do love about Trump is that he has just broken their brains. He has broken them, and they can't hit him with all the stuff they hit everybody else with, and it sort of works. But even then, they've hit so many people over and over and over again with the same attacks that those attacks aren't as effective.
Oh, there's no question.
And he sort of diluted the power of that. And we're coming.
Calling someone a Nazi nowadays is common.
Yeah, but we could get into that. I don't really want to get into that too much because it's like it's just insulting. It's insulting to the men, but
it's
no,
diluted.
Right? But yeah, and the people throwing that label around don't even realize the disgusting insult that is to Holocaust survivors and the diminishment of what actually took place. I do want to, if somebody calls somebody else a Nazi for disagreeing with them about Republican versus Democrat, I'd hit him in the face. Like there's that columnist who got fired from the Globe, Luke O'Neill, punch a Republican. Oh, I'd love to do that, buddy. Believe me, anytime.
Yes,
it's just come on, man.
You,
you are such a scumbag, and there's another scumbag out in Boston politics and media that I wouldn't mind who just loves to throw these racist labels around, white supremacist labels around. I'm like, you mean, do you know the utter horror the KKK inflicted in Southern America? I mean, like to diminish that with your stupid woke hot takes. Oh my God!
Just to shut you up. It's only to shut you up.
It's horrible.
Yep.
It's horrible. And the thing is, that's filtered up through the Democratic Party to cast aspersions on people who just want to have reasonable or just have normal policy disagreements. But Trump, to a large extent, has broken that, and that's a good thing. And he's exposed so many people for what they really are, from the Tom Nichols and the Rick Wilsons and the Jen Rubins, who pretended to be conservatives, but were really probably liberal Republicans, and now they're Republicans so they can get their name on MSNBC. Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post, conservative blogger. Please, oh God, Jennifer Rubin, please just change your profile. You are not a conservative, and that was abundantly clear from every column and post you've written for the past 4 years.
I've never seen one conservative thing she's written. I mean, it's insane.
No.
But it's fine. Have those opinions. Don't call yourself a conservative.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that worries me too. Is you see in social media a lot. Excuse me. That people don't even know what a conservative is anymore. Just refer to conservatives. They think a conservative is somebody that wants to wave the American flag, which is fine with me, and have their guns and be against gay marriage or whatever. That's not even in the definition of conservative. Conservative is such a different thing than people portray it as.
The labels are not well thought out by the other side.
It's an insult in some respects, which is bothersome.
We've gone an hour. Good
Amazing.
stuff. All right, Anthony Amore at Anthony Amore.
Anthony Amore. I can't get my name on Twitter.
Is it Anthony? Oh, all right. Then the graphic has been wrong the whole episode. So
that's okay.
All right,
They'll
but
find
they'll figure. Search Anthony Amore on Twitter. Anything you want to plug? Oh, you're an author.
Yep.
Did you plug away? What book might you be? Are you working on something?
Well, I'm working on a book right now. It's it'll be out in 2020. It's called The Woman Who Stole Vermeer. And when I do these talks about art theft and how it happens, people always ask me, it seems like there's always a man. Has there ever been a woman? There's one. And not only...
I got to tell you, Anthony, you with the sexism on this episode, it's beyond the pale.
Well, that's what's funny. The book is such a feminist book. It's so... The heroines and the anti-heroes are all women. And what this woman did is so ahead of her time. It'll be interesting to see... given my political persuasion, how that plays, but I'm really looking forward to that book coming out. So keep your eyes open for it in 2020.
Any books you've already written you want to plug
I wrote,
people can check out?
On Amazon, you can find Stealing Rembrandts, which is how art is really stolen. And there's a book I wrote called The Art of the Con, which is a New York Times bestseller, and that's about how forgers ply their trade. So either book. I'd be happy for you to give it a look. Don't get it from the library because I don't get royalties when you borrow it.
There's a movie, Stealing Rembrandts?
That's a different thing.
Did you get paid for it?
No, that was Stealing Rembrandt. Mine is plural.
Stealing Rembrandts, The Untold Story of...
Notorious Art Heist. That's the book, yeah.
That's the book.
Yep.
All right, let me do this.
Thank you.
Here we go. Stealing Rembrandts, The Untold Stories of Notorious Art Heist. So who stole all this stuff from the gardener?
I can't say.
Come on, man.
One of these days.
I want an exclusive on my
I'll
podcast.
come on and tell you the whole story when we get them back.
I gotta say, stealing art always makes for a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. From that Pierce Brosnan movie Thomas Crown Affair. There's been like a dozen of them that are always really good. I won't even say stealing art, but stealing like National Treasure. Well, National Treasure. There's a great one too. Though I mean, but the weird part is they're stealing it. I don't know how they managed to do this. They're stealing millions of dollars worth of art, but you sort of are rooting for them to steal it.
Right.
And I don't know why. Maybe it's for a good cause, but maybe they're really a scumbag because they're actually stealing what they're doing, but they paint them as the anti-hero.
They do. Well,
and it plays so well. I
It's
could watch
so popular.
I could watch a heist movie. A good heist movie is the best heist movie. There's always a twist. There's a couple twists. Somebody betrays somebody. They shoot them in the back. Whatever it is.
Well, the irony is that's what this book is about. It's about how Stealing Rembrandts is about how what you see in the movies is never ever the real instance, but it's much like a Coen Brothers movie. So if it would make for good movies anyway, it's just that people prefer the Pierce Brosnan to be their art thief rather than I don't know, maybe
it's
Brolin or whomever.
Yeah, it's not a good heist movie unless you're crawling on the ground on your belly, avoiding lasers.
Totally true.
It's just it can't happen.
Never happened in real life.
Can't happen any other way. Right. But, you spray the powder.
Yeah,
to see the lasers.
Doesn't happen that way, right?
Oh, you're breaking my heart, man.
Sorry. Read the book. You'll like them.
All
You'll
right.
like the real stories.
The book is Stealing Rembrandts, The Untold Stories of Notorious Art Heists. He is Anthony Amore. He is a good man and a good Republican and was a good candidate for Secretary of State. Maybe will be a good candidate for Secretary of State in the future or another office, perhaps. This is the Lincoln Review Podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all of your favorite podcatchers. And that is it. Thank you, Anthony, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Get out there, have a good time, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks.
Thanks.